You're looking at the new Classic Army AR-10. We've had several weeks to test this gun and we've come away impressed. However, as with all of our test products, we review both the good and the bad of each offering. This review will provide details on the pros and the cons of the CA AR-10 and our final recommendation and letter grade. As with most guns that we review here at Airsoft Reports, we decided to film this gun from end to end. Unfortunately, we discovered our biggest complaint lay in the plastic used for the finish of the stock and the pistol grip of this gun. Our test model displayed a finish that would be average on an MPEG, but is subpar on a $300 plus gun. That said, we have had no failures in the stock, and it has been perfectly functional during all of our testing. The AR-10's butt plate is very similar to the M14's in that they both utilize a metal plate with a metal trapdoor. Opening the trapdoor exposes a spacious compartment which can accommodate some of the largest batteries with ease. Ironically, although the space within the stock is plentiful, the entry point is somewhat constricting. The trapdoor limits the ease of battery insertion and extraction due to its relatively small size. That said, we appreciate the solidity that the metal assembly brings to the gun. Embedded within the bottom rear portion of the buttstock is the metal sling mount. Of note is the fact that the rear mount is secured into the stock by the lower flathead screw that runs through the length of the stock. Therefore, if you remove this lower screw, be aware that the sling mount will likely fall out. Although we have only placed limited stress on this mount, it appears to be sturdy, and we predict that it will bear the weight of the gun with ease. One of this gun's nicest features is its full metal receiver. The metal used feels and looks great, and the switch gear is slop-free. The logos include the actual Armalite logo, the real steel caliber designation, the model type, and even a serial number. Viewing the gun from this angle, you can clearly see the functional, paddle-shaped bolt-release lever which spans the seam where the upper and lower receivers come together. This is a useful feature, as we'll discover later in the report. Now, while we're looking at the gun from this angle, it's a great time to mention that the disassembly process on the AR-10 is somewhat unique. Unlike other M16 style AEGs, the rear receiver must be pushed slightly forward after all of the pins are removed. This is because of two small metal tabs that lock into the lower receiver and provide insurance from accidental drops. The AR-10 shares a nearly identical charging handle assembly with that of its M16 cousins and utilizes a small levered latch on the left rear of the handle to help prevent accidental retraction. Unlike other M16 style AEGs, the charging handle will stay back once fully retracted. You must either manually push the charging handle forward, or push the bolt release lever to return the handle to its standby position. Note the reinforced cylinder as well as the brightly colored yellow hop-up adjustment wheels located in the ejection port cover area of the gun. The bolt release feature impressed us greatly as it was fun and allowed for easy one-handed adjustment of the hop-up. We give Classic Army credit for incorporating this simple yet effective design and question why more manufacturers have not followed suit. The rear sight is a feature which deviates from the traditional AR type of sight assembly. Note the Armalite initials on the top of the sight. In this case, the rear sight can be flipped up and has multiple small aperture settings. The operator changes the settings by twisting the knob on top, which rotates the cylinder and changes the size of the sight picture. The sight settings are labeled 3 through 6, with the other 3 apertures remaining unlabeled. It seems logical that these largest 3 settings are unlabeled because they are simply not meant to be used in this manner. It is logical to believe that these largest holes are simply the opposite side of the labeled settings. As with most M16 style AEGs, pulling the charging handle back causes the ejection port cover to flip down and expose the hop-up. As we mentioned earlier, Classic Army's AR-10 benefits from the bolt lock, which keeps the metal flange within the receiver out of the way. Doing so allows for unfettered access to the hop-up controls. Here is a close-up view of the hop-up gears and the reinforced cylinder. Please note that the flange within the receiver has a slightly sharp edge, and it is important to keep clear of the ejection port when pressing the bolt release lever. One small quirk we have found with the function of the bolt release is the fact that the ejection port cover will open when the charging handle is pulled back and when it is released. Therefore, if you pull the charging handle back and then push it all the way forward into its locked standby mode, and then close the ejection port cover and then press the bolt release lever, the ejection port cover will open as the metal flange springs forward. This has not affected the performance of the gun in any way, but it is something we noticed during our tests. The mag release button is a very important part of any gun, real or otherwise. Unfortunately, the AR-10's mag release button was a source of some disappointment to us in its stock form. As with most right-handed AR variants, the AR-10's mag release button is located on the right side of the gun. There are small ridges that surround the button to help protect against accidental button pushing. On our test model, the button was a little bit more sensitive than we would have preferred, as it caused our magazines to drop at unwanted times. Additionally, the mechanism did not always reset after dropping a mag. This caused fresh magazines to be dropped from the magwell even after having fully pushed the magazine up into the magwell. From this angle, you should notice that the small bar on the left side of the magwell extends a fraction of an inch past the lower receiver body. A light tap on this bar causes it to snap back and reset into its empty mag position. But if you forget to tap this bar, the fresh magazine will not have anything to attach to on the inside of the magazine well and will probably drop out. The culprit is probably the small spring which puts tension on the button assembly, and we suspect a quick and simple fix would be to swap out that spring. However, in a gun of this cost, we would prefer not to have to do such a modification, and this has caused the offering to lose some points. Another relatively minor complaint we had about this offering is the fit and finish on the pistol grip. The grip of the AR-10 varies little from the standard AR-type pistol grip and provides adequate comfort to the user. However, as we alluded to earlier in the review, the quality of the fit and finish on this pistol grip leaves some to be desired on a gun of this price. There are several visible seams, and they detract somewhat from the gun's aesthetic appeal. Fortunately, the pistol grip has served its required purpose quite well, and has remained tight and slop-free during our entire testing process. The AR-10 has a metal heatsink located at the bottom end of the pistol grip. Although we have not been able to determine if this device actually succeeds in reducing the heat of the motor, it seems certain that the sink is not increasing the motor's temperature. Therefore, we feel that it is a welcome addition, and we commend Classic Army for including it in the design. The AR-10's trigger is crisp and responsive, and while not a scientific observation, we felt that the trigger lent an air of quality to the entire gun. The AR-10's foregrip is one of the nicest we've handled on any AR variant, and it was rock solid. The foregrip is attached to the receiver with a heavy-duty locking collar, which does a great job of securing the foregrip in place. The only complaint we had was that the edges of some of the rails were rather sharp and could cause damage to unprotected hands. Not only do the rail covers look great, but they soften the edges up nicely and give a nice heft to the gun. To install the covers, simply pull up on the end of the plastic tab and slide the cover onto the rail. Note, the cover is not long enough to cover the entire rail, so position the cover where you'll grip it the most. Removal is simply a reversal of the installation process. Note, we found the covers to be quite secure, so once installed you may have to apply some force the first few times. Like the rear sight, the front sight folds down with a satisfying click, and we were impressed with its build quality. Although we have not subjected it to any severe abuse, we suspect it could withstand quite a bit of stress. There is a hole in the top of the sight hood should the need to adjust the post sight arise. However, we suspect this will be unnecessary as this AEG will likely be used with an optic. As we mentioned earlier, the rate of fire switch has no function on this airsoft gun. However, its inclusion demonstrates Classic Army's dedication to producing an accurate replica, and we appreciate that. The switch engages into its two settings with a satisfying click, and it's a shame that it does not have any actual effect on the gun's rate of fire. The flash hider on the AR-10 is composed of matte black metal with the front dipped in orange paint. The flash hider is attached to the barrel with the small Allen set screw located at the 6 o'clock position on the bottom of the muzzle attachment. There also appears to be some adhesive keeping the flash hider in place, as we were unable to remove the muzzle attachment without applying heat. Because this gun is on loan, we did not pursue more extreme methods of removal. During our testing, we encountered some miscellaneous issues that we decided to notify you of. The first was a fuse issue. Our test model initially burned the first fuse that came with it. We replaced the fuse from one of our spare parts bins, and the gun has functioned flawlessly since. The next issue was a hop-up problem. After several shots, we encountered an issue where our BBs were flying off to the left at a noticeable 30 to 35 degree angle after the BB had fired out to approximately 75 feet. After cleaning the barrel and the hop-up bucking, the problem disappeared. One last miscellaneous point worth mentioning is that the M14 mags are not compatible with the AR-10 mag well. Given the similarity in the magazine shape, we decided to see if the two would fit. We discovered that while the external dimensions of the two magazines are similar, the point where the magazines secure within the mag wells are different. Theoretically, some modification could possibly allow for interchangeability, but our guess is that AR-10 buyers will find the 470 round high-capacity magazine more than sufficient for their purposes. The quality of the Classic Army AR-10 is on the whole very high. There were some design quirks that caused it to lose some points, but by our estimation, all are easily remedied. At its core, Classic Army's AR-10 offers one of the most physically solid pieces on the market, and it seems ready to take whatever skirmishers can throw at it. We have yet to find a product that does not have faults. That said, we would have given the Classic Army an A+ if the finish and magazine release button had been better. Notwithstanding these criticisms, we awarded this new AR-10 a solid A-. This concludes the Airsoft Report's quality report on the new Classic Army AR-10. Classic Army AR-10 supplied by Spartan Imports. Remember to subscribe to our free email alerts, and you can now follow us on Twitter.